Coming up, why the loss of the spare room subsidy is causing some families to cut back, according to a housing survey.
Police hunt a Worcestershire father as they search for a missing toddler.
And how savvy are you when it comes to saving money and spending wisely? Some top tips at 6. Police hunt a Worcestershire father in their search for a missing toddler. We'll have the details next. Hello, you're watching ITV News Central. On our programme tonight, how the government's spare room subsidy means some Midlanders are struggling to make ends meet.
Cut back on food sometimes. I have to go to food banks. I just don't go out, so I can't afford to go anywhere.
The search for a father and daughter missing from Worcester for 4 days.
Fighting talk, Denmark's Mikkel Kessler on his boxing bouts with Carl Froch and who the Dane thinks will be this weekend's Wembley winner.
And savvy savers find out how this frugal family saved more than £1,000 in just 6 weeks.
Good evening. In the last few minutes, police have said a toddler from Worcester who's gone missing with her father may have been spotted in a village in Oxfordshire.
They've been missing for 4 days now, and police forces in Worcestershire, Oxfordshire and other areas have now joined in the search. Mark Goff has the latest in our newsroom. Mark.
Yeah, the information about these sightings has come in the last few minutes. And as you say, we're in the 4th day of this police search. Tanith Powell is only 3. She was last seen with her father, Ewan, on Saturday morning in Worcester. This is the latest picture of Tanith, which we've just received from the police. And they've told us in the last few minutes that they've had one unconfirmed sighting of Tanith in Oxfordshire, and they're investigating other sightings in the county. So the last sighting confirmed was in Worcester Saturday morning. She was with her father. Now, he lives some distance away in Oxfordshire, in the village of Benton, which is just south of Oxford itself, and that's where these possible sightings have been. So now police there, Thames Valley Police and West Mercia Police from Worcestershire are working together in this search. Now, they also believe he has links to Scotland, and his house in Oxfordshire has recently been vacated, the police have just told us. Well, the police said that Ewan spoke to someone 2 days after they were last seen, so that makes it on the Monday. We don't know if he spoke to police or to a member of the family. Officers say it's completely out of character for Tanith's father to be with her and not to be in contact with anyone else. A quick description of what they look like. Ewan is white, he's 5'10", he's got short brown hair, medium build, and he was wearing jeans, a black jumper and brown shoes. Tanith is white, 3'3" inches, she's slim with brown hair, and she had a pink coat with flowers on, a grey long-sleeve top, dark leggings and Spider-Man trainers. Now at the moment, as I say, because police say it's completely out of character, they didn't need to check that Tanith and her father are okay. But 4 days in, these sightings are obviously the first kind of concrete information of where she may be, but it's imperative now that they have more definite information about the whereabouts.
Thank you very much, Mark.
People from the Midlands are cutting back on essentials like food and heating because of the controversial spare room subsidy. That's according to a new survey by the National Housing Federation.
The Federation say almost 9 out of 10 rent payers affected by the loss of the subsidy are now worried about meeting their living costs. Almost half have had to borrow money to make ends meet. Keith Wilkinson reports.
Adrian Downing has been receiving benefits since an accident at work left him with disabilities. Because he has what is seen as a spare room in his small bungalow, he now receives less money, the result of the so-called bedroom tax. He says he needs the room, a place where his young daughter can stay when she comes to visit him at Essington in Staffordshire.
I just cut back on clothes. I can't buy any clothes. I have to cut back on food sometimes. I have to go to food banks, which I've got a ticket for another food bank I have to go to soon. I just don't go out, so I can't afford to go anywhere, so I just stay in. Because of my disability and everything, I don't do anything no more.
Protesters say bedroom tax aimed at getting better use out of rented properties is causing great hardship. Now, the National Housing Federation says 34% of people affected are cutting back on food. More than a quarter are cutting back on heating. 45% face having to borrow money to pay the rent.
It's just hard. It's just hard. All I want to do is, concentrate on my daughter, and make sure she's happy when I've got her, and she's got everything she needs. That's all I'm worried about. And this bedroom tax is taking a big chunk out of my money.
But the Department for Work and Pensions says it was simply wrong that taxpayers were paying for spare bedrooms like this one when 300,000 people were living in overcrowded homes and 1.7 million people were on housing waiting lists. It says £345 million has been made available to councils to support the most vulnerable people. Keith Wilkinson, ITV News.
Police have released CCTV images of a man wanted in connection with an attack on a woman who was hit on the head with a bottle. It happened on Dixon's Green Road in Cates Hill in Dudley. Officers say the 56-year-old woman had met a man for a drink in the town centre, but the same man later struck her with a bottle in an apartment block stairwell.
Specialist emergency crews have rescued a man who tumbled down a 40-foot cliff in Dudley. The victim, in his teens or early 20s, was with friends at the Saltwells Nature Reserve in Netherton when he slipped at the top of the slope and fell over the edge. He'll now need surgery.
Losing just a few pounds can add years to your life. That's the message from health watchdogs who say obesity is now a much bigger problem than smoking. The National Institute for Clinical Excellence, or NICE, has started a new campaign to fight the epidemic, which it says costs the NHS more than £5 billion every year. More than a quarter of adults are now classed as being obese, and another third of people are overweight. Kate Jolly, Professor of Public Health at the University of Birmingham and one of the experts behind the new report, says getting the country healthy again is now more than just a case of eating less and being more active.
It might be things like setting a goal for a particular behaviour, so walking or portion size, something like that. Also, perhaps recruiting a buddy or a family member to diet alongside or do the physical activity alongside. Keeping diaries so that we can see our progress, perhaps monitoring our own weight. So a range of different strategies that go together with the diet and the activity and try and support long-term change.
Clearly there is a role for GPs, but if we are really to tackle this, we have to ensure that patients and the public can access these services through schools, education, shopping centres, community pharmacies and other services so that they can directly benefit from this national programme.
It took nearly 60 years from the point at which we learned in the first scientific paper that there was a direct connection between tobacco smoking and getting lung cancer. 60 years till we had smoke-free environments at work and in public places. Obesity is probably an even bigger tanker to turn around than tobacco, and this is but one part of those first steps that we can all take towards helping with the global epidemic.
Cyclists in Birmingham say they're angry over a decision to cancel this year's Sky Ride. It's thought that for 2014, Birmingham is the only city to have withdrawn. Up to 18,000 cyclists take part every year, with events going ahead in Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool and Sheffield. Birmingham City Council said it had been unable to agree a date or a route, despite being awarded a £17 million government grant to improve cycling in the city.
The mother of inspirational fundraiser Stephen Sutton has called on well-wishers to do something to make others happy in his memory. Stephen from Burntwood in Staffordshire had multiple cancerous tumours and died earlier this month. He inspired thousands to donate to charity. Yellow ribbons are being put up in his hometown before his funeral tomorrow. You can learn more of that, including tributes on Stephen's legacy, on the programme tomorrow.
You're watching ITV News Central, still to come. Find out how this frugal family saved themselves a small fortune, and you can do it too. A new social attitude survey shows that the West Midlands tops a national poll for the number of people who admit to being racially prejudiced. It's attributed to growing concern about the terror threat and immigration.
Yes, the figures show 35% of people in this region describe themselves as prejudiced. The national average is 30%. The biggest age group it affects are the over 55s. The report's author is Penny Young.
The figures really vary around the country, so it's striking that in inner London, for example, only 16% report some levels of racial prejudice, compared with the highest figure of 35% in the West Midlands. What's interesting is that both of these areas are both culturally and ethnically diverse. But in London, you've got a younger, more mobile, more educated population, and we know that being younger and more educated means that you're likely to be less racially prejudiced. In the West Midlands, as I say, it's a diverse area, but poorer, more deprived. And we think that that's probably something to do with it because, again, people who've got fewer qualifications are more personally threatened by immigration in terms of their personal prospects for work.